Well, we are in part 2 of a series we're doing on this book, The Untethered Soul. Many of you are familiar with this book, and it's not a book that you just sort of read and then go, okay, I got that, I'm done now. It's a lifetime manual of our spiritual awakening, and so it's something that we are going to do again, and we are doing again. I think we did it back in 2014 when I soon after I got here. But you're all so much more awakened now, so this is a whole other level of understanding that you will achieve by hearing, being present to it. And some of you weren't here then, of course, also. So I want to do a little review, because isn't it always good to kind of just remember where we came from so we can tack on this new understanding to the foundation of what we already have learned. And yes? Yes. Okay. A little review is okay, yes. We don't have to be too redundant, but we certainly want to capture the pearls of wisdom from where we came from last week, and that has to do with knowing thyself. Knowing thyself. And of course, that is the existential question that everybody seeks to answer. And of course, there's very many levels of understanding of who am I, right? And of course, what we're interested in here is that which lies prior to all of the appearances, all of the physical manifestations that we associate with ourselves, our body, our mind, our story, our biography, who we came from, where our parents were. All that makes for interesting genealogy studies. We can put that in our biography someday. But our spiritual biography is something that remains hidden for most of us, because we haven't explored the depths of that question. Who am I really? Who am I? Who am I? When I say I am, what are we talking about? What is that reference? What is that when there's an answer to that comes from within? What is the answer to who am I? How do you know that you am? How do you know that you exist? What is the sense of your own identity? This is a very important question, and it's a powerful practice, one that we almost always skip over in getting on with life and getting on with this body-mind activity. We forget to spend time recognizing the very baseline of our identity, the very baseline of the life energy that is here, right here, within us. And of course, every spiritual teacher has encouraged us to take this to do this self-inquiry, because the profit that can come from knowing who you are can affect your whole life. It can just completely transform your life when you know that you are this spiritual being that is not tossed about by all the ups and downs of life, that is invulnerable to the risings and fallings of when the Tao is up and when the Tao is down, and when she loves you and when he loves you not, and when you're getting what you want and when you're not getting what you want. Knowing who we are is the place of invulnerability, the place of wholeness and well-being, in which we truly have our life. Not our life situations, but life with a capital L. So this is where we started with last week, and we said that it's important for us to know that when we're listening to that voice in our head, which we all have one, and if you're thinking to yourself, what voice? Well, that's the one. That one. Then it's not the voice in the head that is who we are, but the one that of us that listens, the one that can hear the voice in our head. That is the true self, because that is awareness itself. It is not something that is constantly clamoring and talking. It is that which is the space of receptivity, of listening, of understanding, of being, and that's who we are. And the quote from the book from last week was, "Who are you? I am the one who sees. From back in here somewhere, I look out and I am aware of the events, the thoughts, and the emotions that pass through me." That's who I am. I am the firstborn, prior to your physical birth. That is who I am. So this week we are moving right along here, and we're talking about something that is not often talked about perhaps in Unity churches all that much, although it's highly regarded in the Eastern traditions, and that is the idea of energy, talking about energy. And we're talking about spiritual energy, not necessarily physical energy. We're talking about spiritual energy, and that has different names across the Eastern traditions. Shakti is sometimes referred to as Shakti, sometimes referred to as Chi. It is the spirit. We could say it is the spirit. It is the life force. It is the animating life force. And it is not, and again, just like understanding the true self, which is invulnerable to the risings and fallings of life, this spirit, this energy cannot be contained. There's no energy crisis for us spiritually. There is no limitation on our spiritual energy, even though there may be great limitations on our physicality, on our physical energy. But our spiritual energy is unbounded. How does that sound? You have unbounded spiritual energy. And so it's important for us to recognize that in any given moment when we're not experiencing, this energy flowing through us, it's not because there's some shortage where, Spirit has turned off the tap that's coming to you, and now you're just getting a trickle of that spiritual energy. When you and I are feeling a loss or a lack of spiritual energy, it's because we have obstructed the flow in some way by the way that we have responded to life usually. Because when we like what we're getting in life, oftentimes we're open, aren't we? And when we're open, then that spiritual energy can just flow, and we're happy, and we're loving, and we're forgiving, and we're just embracing everything that's going on. And when we're experiencing life in a way that we don't like, typically then what do? We close. And so what we're talking about today is remaining open. This is the spiritual practice du jour. And it's something that can happen so sort of beneath our awareness most of the time. We're not aware of when we close, but we're aware of the effects of the closing. Because when we close down, and what we're really talking about is this energy center right here, which is called the heart chakra. When we close the heart chakra, we experience this kind of spiritual angina. It is a pain. It is a type of suffering. And when we experience that, then it's feedback to me that I'm somehow have closed. I have not remained this open spiritual vessel that can continue to be that which the download of spiritual energy, which is always seeking to express through me and through you, because you are a spiritual being. Yes, you have a body, and yes, you have a mind, and yes, you seem to have physical limitations and boundaries, but spiritually, you are the conduit through which spiritual energy seeks to flow. And when I know that about myself, and I'm not experiencing the torrent and the full flow of energy, then I have to ask myself, where have I obstructed the flow? What is the occlusion here in my spiritual artery that is causing me to feel this pain or this suffering or this not enoughness? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Okay, good. Some of you are looking a little, I'm not sure if I'm buying these metaphors, but anyway, it's important for me to find ways of explaining this so that we realize that there's, we're very familiar with the flow of energy through the body, the flow of blood through the body. We know that if any of those things get obstructed, then we have dis-ease, right? And, if you go to a chiropractor, they talk extensively about, the flow of energy. The spine is this raceway of energy. And that if you have problems in the body, they typically relate it to some sort of an obstruction in this flow of energy, and that it has physical manifestations. Well, the same way as in our spiritual body, that it's designed to be open and flowing all the time. And if we're not experiencing that flow, then we have to ask ourselves, what have I done? How have I shut down this beautiful spiritual energy that wants to express through me? So, let me look at oh, no. I left it at home. Okay, who cares? My points to ponder are all over the church here, but they're not here. yesterday we had this wonderful workshop. It was empathy training as part of our peace and reconciliation. We're building a team, we're building a culture of peace here at Unity of Santa Barbara to give all of us who want to develop deeper skills and being able to relate to each other in a healthier way, which starts with understanding what happens inside us, and then it has to do with understanding others better. And so Reverend Denise and a colleague of hers put on a wonderful workshop yesterday for an hour and a half in the chapel. And what we learned had a lot to do with what we're talking about today, which is that there is this divine energy that you and I have, all of us have. And when I am in alignment with this divine energy within me, then I suddenly am also in the pool with you. I'm in the same vibration. So when you and I decide that what we're going to do in this moment is to become present, which obviously is a very practical practice that we endorse. When you become present, then you will become very aware of your energetic body. And you tend to have the sense of your heart being open, because it's not possible to be in the past or in the future and have your heart open. There's something that requires us to be in this now moment. So our first step in empathy and in listening and being with other people is to just bring ourselves into the present moment. Now, of course, this is a challenge for us if we're in a relationship with someone, perhaps that is difficult. But it is the intention for us to stay present that is the first way of us being able to stay in that flow of divine energy. Because we want to be the presence of God. We want to be the way of spirit. We don't want to be in the way of spirit. We want to be the way of spirit. So it's me becoming very present, and that was one of our first exercises of the day, was just become present. Just practice becoming present. And you can do this anywhere you are, when you're driving your car, even when you're walking up to somebody and you haven't seen for a while, or maybe you're a little nervous about an encounter with them, is just become conscious of your inner energy field. And just be, I am here now, and I am available for the presence and the power and the love, to express through me, so that you feel very fluid and you feel very available. Oh, you have my points to ponder. Oh, Joan to the rescue. Da-da-da-da-da. Thank you. I'm a whole person with Joan and Denise supporting me in this life. But to continue with that idea, though, we understand that when I am present, and I think this is the point that I got really strongly yesterday, is that once I become present and I have that divine energy, I am automatically in alignment with you. Where you are in your divine energy and I am in my divine energy are not two different pools. They are the same stream. And so we now step into the same stream and we share the same water, we share the same love, we share the same understanding, we share the same oneness, we share the same peace. It isn't my peace and your peace and my love and your love. When we are present, we are in the universal. We are in the universal. And then that energy knows how to get along. It knows how to get along. It knows how the confluence of our uniqueness can still flow harmoniously together in a stream that retains the diversity and the multiplicity, but it does so in harmony. Does this make sense? So the multiplicity and diversity that we don't throw that out in our spiritual work. We honor our diversity, we honor our differences, but we bring ourselves into a place of oneness, of centeredness, of presence, because in that way we know how to merge our diversity and our uniqueness in a way that allows us to be together and to move forward together with a shared reality for shared goals, because we all really want the same thing, don't we? Don't we all really want the same? Don't we have all the same needs, the same basic needs? We want to belong, we want to be cared for, we want to, we want to matter. All of these are universal human needs. And when I'm present, when I'm in that place, then there's an openness and a willingness for me to be interested in what your needs are, knowing that my needs and your needs, they are equally important, and they can be found, the way to that satisfaction and that fulfillment can be found as long as we stay with our hearts open and when we know that that divine flow is possible. And sometimes you may be the only one who has your heart open in a relationship, and you can still do great work because you understanding what another person is going through oftentimes diffuses the sense of resistance or rejection that comes from us when we have no interest in what someone else is feeling or needing. So I've got a few points to ponder. Let's see, it's 10 to 11, and I do want to share this. Okay, we're good. So I'm going to read through these points to ponder because I always like to make sure you have something, and these are available on the table out there, so you can pick one up if you'd like. So energy centers throughout the body, we already said that, are called chakras, and they manage this internal flow of energy. Energy does not get old or tired. Isn't that good to know? Whew, wow. It simply needs openness and receptivity to maintain its flow. So it doesn't get old and tired because of age. It has the appearance of being limited when we have closed down, when we close our hearts. And so openness allows energy in, and closing blocks it out. You stay open by never closing, kind of like 7-Eleven version of it or something. The highest state you have ever experienced is simply the result of how open you were. If you don't close, it can be like that all the time. Wow? That's an OMG, right? That you can think of your highest high that you've ever had in your life, the greatest moment you can ever think of, when you were like just ebullient with energy and joy. And that had to do with how open you were. And maybe that was in response to getting what you wanted. Life was particularly happy for you in that moment or pleasing to you. But it wasn't just that gave you that sense of joy and enthusiasm. It was your response. It was you going, yes! And your heart opens up. And it's that opening of the heart that allows this amazing energy to flow through us. And the result of that is how amazing you feel, not that you won the lottery or whatever the case may be. Our hearts close because they become blocked by stored, unfinished energy patterns from the past. And the yogis call these samskaras. You ever heard that word? Samskaras? Samskara kind of has an idea of scarring, but usually these are old things that have happened in the past, wounds that we've had from the past, limited beliefs that have developed where something happened somewhere early in our life and we closed our heart. And so in the future, when things happen and they look like or feel like or taste like or seem like that kind of a situation, we respond the same way we did. That's what a samskara is. It calls us back to an old conditioned reflex reaction to life. And so the way that we deal with those is, and this is this particular approach, and of course there's others as well, is instead of, when we're aware that we're starting to close our heart, like if he has an example in the book here of he's driving along and he sees this blue Mustang and he sees what looks to be his girlfriend in the car, arm in arm with a guy in the car. And he goes into this whole story, and it reminds him of, all the things in his life where he was cheated on or rejected or not respected. And so he's just having this horrible experience, pain and suffering to the 9th degree. And he realizes that, he just took an appearance and then just sort of relived all the suffering of his past in that moment. And it doesn't get questioned. So if it doesn't get questioned, then it can just, keep closing and closing. So the practice that we have here is to become aware of what's happening and then to say, I'm going to stay open and bring present moment awareness to that feeling, wherever that is, if it's in your gut or your heart, and keep bringing presence to it because the Spirit is able to open any closed heart. if we intend, if we're willing that this can be done, and it may take time and it may take, rinse and repeat, over and over and over again to do enough of these things to begin to not respond so strongly, but little by little we will begin to, dissolve these reactions that come from times when we are triggered along similar events. So that's what he calls purification of the heart. It comes as a continual process. Simply allow the experiences of life to come in and to pass through your being as much as possible. Pass through your being. In other words, we can see something happening or we can get caught on it, or we can just say, oh, there's that, there's that. There's a car cutting me off, or there's someone who's not driving very well, or that was a kind of a funny look she gave me, and sort of get stuck there, or just say that's just what that is, and not continue the process of reinterpreting according to these samskaras, these old patterns that take us backwards. So the message is very simple. And it was in our reading this morning. It's with each experience, when this happens, we relax, release, and let go. Relax, release, and let go. I mean, it sounds so simple, right? So simple. But really, that's all that who you really are wants in every single moment of time. The only thing your true self wants is to express itself fully through this vehicle that is your being. That's the ultimate will of God, if you want to call it that. The only will of a creator is that it be known through its creation. And when we're obstructing the expression of our creator, which is the life energy, the love that we are, when we're obstructing that, then we suffer. And so we're also denying or defying the will of the one, which only wants to be made known through us. That's love, of life, of peace. And lastly, this technique of freeing yourself is done with the understanding that thoughts and emotions are just objects in consciousness. They're just objects in consciousness. And what are you? You're the observer. You are the consciousness itself. So when you see that you have a feeling or that there's a thought or there's something out there, who is the one who is observing that? That's the true self. That's the aware presence that doesn't get affected, that doesn't get diminished, doesn't get hurt, doesn't get angry, doesn't get frustrated. It is that which remains back here as the observer of life. And that's our goal, is to become so much more identified with the observer or the aware presence or the consciousness that we are, that life then can be seen as things that are rising and falling and up and down and here and there, and I get what I want and I don't get what I want, but I'm okay. I'm okay. My heart stays open because I am not what happens. I am that which is prior to whatever happens in this life. And that's what spiritual awakening is all about. I'll just read the last quote from the book here. This is the key to staying happy. Anyone interested in that? Okay, we'll just I'll have two of those, waiter, and put one in a box to go, yes. The key to staying happy is really very simple. Begin by understanding your inner energies, If you look inside, you will see that when you're happy, your heart feels open, and the energy rushes up inside of you. Yeah? Do we know this? We know this. And when you aren't happy, your heart feels closed, and no energy comes up inside. So to stay happy, just don't close your heart, no matter what happens. Even if your wife leaves you or your husband dies, you don't close. Wow. The key is to learn to keep your mind disciplined enough so that it doesn't trick you into thinking that this time it's worth closing. If you slip, you get back up. The minute you slip, the minute you open your mouth, the minute you start to close and defend yourself, get back up. Just pick yourself up and affirm inwardly that you don't want to close no matter what happens. Affirm that all you want is to be at peace and to appreciate life. You don't want your happiness to be conditional upon the behavior of other people. It's bad enough that your happiness is conditional upon your own behavior. Right? When you start making it conditional upon other people's behavior, you're in serious trouble. Yes? Yes, yes. So this idea that what do we really want in our life is what gives us the resolve to do this when it's really particularly difficult. Because you can say, well, if I really have something that's really hard to deal with, and you just say, just keep your heart open, that seems a little unrealistic. It seems a little simplistic. It seems a little Pollyannish, like New Agey kind of, right? But think about it. If your choice is either to close, which means that you are closing off all of your potentiality, you're closing off your wisdom, you're closing off your ability to love, your ability to forgive, your ability to see differently, your ability to be creative. All of that goes when we close ourselves down. I know it is for me. I am not a resourceful person when I'm closed down. Is it true? So it really comes down to that. Yeah, this is really hard to do, to keep my heart open, but I so want the being and all of its attributes, the fruits of the Spirit. I want that more than anything else, and that's really what it takes in this life. You have to want the fruits of the Spirit. You want to be able to have access to that love and that life more than you want to be right, more than you want to be justified, more than you want someone else to be punished, more than you want someone to be shown up, more than anything else in the world. When that becomes the greater value, that becomes the piece de resistance, we say in French. Was that pretty good? I got the thumbs up over here from my French person. When that becomes more important than anything else in life, then we do find more resolve. Then we find more ability to stand in the fire, and when we're wanting to close, and just stay with the pain, stay with whatever it is. It needs to burn because it's old, it's encrusted, and it's a story of the past. It no longer has any purpose here in this life. Keep bringing presence to it, love to it, until it eventually just begins to resolve, and it will no longer have the hold on you that it did before. And the next time when that happens, you'll notice that maybe you close, but not completely. Or you close and you open sooner. Yeah? And that's all we can really ask, not perfection, but progress. Yeah? Progress, not perfection. That's what we're after. So that's enough for today, because it is 11 o'clock. That's when we end, right? Yes, I don't even know. Should I share what our little example? Sure. Okay, good. This is real quick. This is a personal example. So this is real quick. Well, we found out a week ago from our oldest son, who lives up in Santa Rosa with his wife and our 2 grandchildren. They called and they said, they're apartment managers, and so they get a big discount on the rent. And after 6 years, they're being told that their job is coming to an end and they have to move out. And so they're freaking out because you lose about $1,000 a month of rent that's going to add on to their. So suddenly they say, we don't know what to do, but we're going to have to move. And we're thinking about moving, but we're not sure. And then 2 days later, they called us and said, well, we're moving up to Bainbridge Island, and Becky's family is going to help us buy a house, and so we're going to go in June. And Denise and I wanted to be open-hearted and celebrating and seeing all of the good. But what happened was, guess what? Hearts closed. And it was really hard to stay on the phone call without that sort of, projecting that sadness that we were feeling. So we had to be with that. And so we know enough about this that we know that a cause of our suffering was not the news. You know what I'm saying? Sure, we were disappointed, and sure, we want to have a closer relationship with our kids and our grandkids, and that's precious to us. And we just had them for 3 days living, staying with us, and we just are really getting closer to them. And all of the circumstances are there to say, well, of course you would be sad. Of course you'd be disappointed. Of course you might even be a little frustrated with your kids for making that move so quickly and not checking in with you, as if they were supposed to, Have you asked us about this? No. And so what happened is, Denise and I both, began to have to process it internally, to be present to it and what's really going on here. And as we became more present, what happened was we realized that the source of our sadness was our own reaction to what they said. And when we could begin to just be present with it and just let it sort of just be, then what emerged was this sense of, wait a minute, maybe, what is this? What is this really? Then we began to feel like, oh my gosh, this is a perfect opportunity for them. They can buy a house. They can't buy a house in Santa Rosa. It's too expensive. They can buy a house over in this Squamish area. And suddenly we're like, this is all good, and this is great, and we can be happy for them. And so we got to call them, a couple days later and say, we're so happy for you, and we're glad for you. We're sad that you're going. How can we support you? So the circumstances don't change. But when we can find ourselves, get our hearts back open again, then we have a whole other perspective on things. And then we can be the kind of people that we want to be with the people that we love, even when things don't go the way we would like. Namaste. Yeah.